Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Thriving in Intersectionality, a space I love holding to explore the experiences of leaders, founders, educators, and just passionate business owners that are doing the work of leadership and embracing their full self. So, of course, I come in with a word. The title of the podcast is Thriving in Intersectionality. And so I love to spend a few seconds explaining that mouthful of a word. And intersectionality itself is a framework that recognizes how multiple aspects of identity, such as gender, career journey, lived experience, personal history, beyond identity is included, right? How all of these things overlap and interact and shape how we all experience the world and how we lead through the world. So my guests are usually leading something, their role, their jobs, all of the multiple portfolio that they pack. And we love to hear more about the behind the scene, how they got there, and how all of who they are is showing up in the work that they are doing today. So this platform and coming in through the word intersectionality also allows us to explore leadership and influence, not just through expertise or achievement, but through our identities, our confidence, and all of the internal narratives that show up in how we lead people. So thank you for being with me today, Kelly. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited for this conversation.
Of course. Glad to have you. All right. A little bit about Kelly before we get started. Kelly Schuknecht has spent over 20 years in marketing, helping entrepreneurs and professionals move from being the best kept secret to the trusted authority in their field. She's an author. Her book is titled Your Authority X Factor, and she shares a little bit about, we'll ask her for a little bit about that, the three-pillar framework for personal branding: visibility, credibility, and consistency. She also runs 2 Mile High Marketing, where she specializes in thought leadership development. She's the host of 2 podcasts, Beyond the Bestseller, where she features female authors of nonfiction books and empower them to share their stories, and The Authority X Factor, where she interviews thought leaders in a variety of industries. So I love having you here, Kelly, today, and I can't wait to dive into your background, your story, and how you got here.
Well, I'm happy to talk about it. You want me to dive in?
Yes. So, well, let me give you the first prompt question because I don't want us to go too deep before we ask you the
All
most
right.
important part. So, beyond your bio, and for those listening, of course, they can read your full bio in the podcast detail. I, I I always summarize it quickly because I'm like, people can read all about that. I really want us to go behind the scene. So, Kelly, when you think of the word intersectionality, what aspects of your life and experience have most shaped how you see yourself and your work today?
Yeah. Yeah. I had to look up the word before we started talking because it's not a word I use often, but it
Mhm.
resonated so much with me because for me, I have been a professional for my whole career. I've been in these professional roles, but I always had kind of a creative outlet outside of work. And which I never really knew why I was pursuing these things, but I think that some of it was that I was needing to express myself in a way that my professional, the professional persona, like it's not really acceptable to show up in certain ways at work, right? And so I was doing these other things, expressing myself. And when I was laid off a couple of years ago, and when I lost my job, I kind of went public with like the stuff I had been doing, outside of work, and kind of became more myself in my public presence. And among my professional network, which then led to me creating a business around personal branding, because it was all about, I was branding myself without really even knowing it all along, but I just was keeping things very separate. And then when I finally was able to bring those things together, that was when it finally clicked that like, oh, this is why I had this pull to do things that were different, from the professional, the professional, again, like that persona that that we feel comfortable showing up online with. So to me, that was kind of, that resonated with me in that way.
So, what were those non-professional facing brands of you? Who is the real Kelly outside of the work? What are those other things that will tell us a little more about you beyond your
Yeah.
marketing?
Yeah. Well, it's evolved over time, I would say. But when I was working in publishing. So at the beginning of my career, I worked in publishing, and and this was a long time ago. So like internet stuff was new, social media was new, right? But I just always loved social media. So I would show up and I started blogging about book marketing, and I started doing when TikTok came about, I started doing some TikTok videos around book marketing, or, things related to books. Over the last year, it has actually evolved into, I do a lot of lifestyle, beauty, and fashion content, which feels very like, sometimes I'm like, it feels a little silly. It feels a little like, not my professional self that people normally see, but it's this part of me that like, I do that. And I have kind of created a platform around lifestyle and fashion and beauty kind of content, and it's just been really fun, right? Like just putting myself out there in a way that people wouldn't necessarily expect, but that I really enjoy, and get to connect with people and kind of grow a platform outside of my business, outside of my work, and my professional side.
Yeah, I love it. Lifestyle and beauty, blogging, writing. Um, what about your anything else that gives us a little more about you before I move to the professional questions?
Well,
Anything else about
you and I talked before we started, recording this, that I live in Colorado, and so there's also, we take for granted certain things, especially like I live in the mountains of Colorado, where like when I walk outside, I have an amazing, amazing view. I have mountains in front of my house. I have a lake there. I can walk to another lake, whatever. These are things that like I don't even think about on a daily basis. I'm walking in the national forest. I see the tallest mountain peak in Colorado right outside my house, right? I don't even think about it. But sometimes I'll post content around that, and people start to associate me with those things, right? Like Colorado and mountains and outdoors, and these things that again, like you almost take for granted in your day-to-day life. But when you do share some of that, you realize that, oh, this makes me unique and different, and not everyone sees what I see every day.
Yeah, I love that. The mountains. Yes, I love that. That's my part of what I love about San Diego too is also the view. I'm a view
Oh, I
person. Like
love San
what do you
Diego.
see whenever
Yeah.
I travel to a new city in the US? I haven't traveled to a lot of cities, but whenever I travel, one of the first things I notice and pay attention to is what does the scenery
Yeah.
look like? You go to the East Coast and the vegetation is so tall and thick. And then you're going to certain cities and it's mountains, and sometimes it's a different kind of trees that are very skinny and tall.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but having mountains and national parks would not be a bad idea at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, nice to meet you and live through you into your world a little bit. So, can you walk us through your professional path a little
Yeah.
bit? You mentioned journalism, but how did you get here? What
Yeah.
did you who for?
Yeah. Well, so I mentioned that I was laid off. So, I hated that part of my story for so long, because I hate, I don't like that there's this negative kind of part of my story, but I realized through sharing it that there's a lot of people who have dealt with similar situations, and I'm not alone in that. And also my story has helped other people in knowing that like um, that there can be a better future. But I started my career in publishing, as I mentioned. So for 10 years, I worked in a publishing company, and it was very just engrossed in that world. I was helping people with marketing their books. I was, it even that was new at the time, 20 years ago, that publishing a book online, self-publishing, now anyone can just do it, but back then it was new. And so I was part of like that, like kind of spearheading a lot of new initiatives for the company and figuring out like how to do new things because the world was changing so fast with the internet. So, I did that for 10 years. I left there and I went into a marketing role in a company, in a virtual CFO company. And I helped grow that business from 4 million to 12 million over the 7 years that I was there. And it was, it was exciting. It was fun. It was a great job. I traveled a lot. I loved my job. But we got acquired by a larger firm. And that's when I knew like, uh-oh, I might lose my job because the larger firm had a marketing department. And, so I knew probably I needed to be thinking about what might be next for me. And I never saw myself starting a company, but I started kind of dreaming about that at the time. I think there's no harm in dreaming about things when, you don't have to make any decisions. You don't have to do anything. And so I had created a name of my company. I had actually started a website just thinking like, well, I might need to do this at some point. I still wasn't thinking about it that seriously. I just, I was just like preparing, I think. And in October 2024, I had a meeting with my boss, and HR came in, and I lost my job at that point. And I immediately went into this mode of like, okay, I'm gonna start applying for jobs and whatever. And then I went, you know what, I wanted to do this. I wanted to start this business, and so that's what I'm gonna spend this time doing. And so I did. So I started my business, and it came together really quickly. I mentioned I had been always doing some, I say like a side hobby, not a side hustle. I wasn't making any money doing like content on the side of my jobs, but I always enjoyed it. So I was always showing up on TikTok or X, back in the day, and Instagram and did I say Twitter? So Twitter or X, whatever, and then TikTok and Instagram. Anyways, so I was always like showing up on those platforms, and I was building this audience. I was also very active on LinkedIn. And so when I said, I'm going to start this business helping people develop their personal brand, people were going, oh, like I need, and they just quickly associated me with the things that I had been doing that I hadn't even realized I was developing this skill, developing this reputation. And so it helped me grow my business really quickly once I decided that that's how I was going to move forward. So that's what we do at 2 Mile High Marketing, is help people with developing their personal brand, their thought leadership platform, marketing in a very, very specific way for business owners.
Yeah, I love it. All of the things that you didn't think you were already doing. I think I was also one of those people that will be like, oh yeah, I never saw myself starting a business. It's like I always used to say I'm a corporate girl. It's like I'm going to work in corporations and climb the corporate ladder, and then yeah, when it's time, and I think you're right. Is not You're not going to be starting from scratch when you decide to start a business doing something you love.
Right.
Probably have more materials than you think you do already.
Right. Yeah, so you mentioned my podcast. One of my podcasts is The Authority X Factor. And that is actually the title of my book as well, Unlocking Your Authority X Factor. And that's what that book is about, is discovering that that unique skill set, those qualities that we have, the experience that we have that has led us to serve people in a certain way that we often take for granted, right? So 20 years into my career, I never saw myself as a business owner or the face of a company or the person that should be in the spotlight. But all of a sudden I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And it was like, it just made sense. It came together because I did have 20 years of experience, and, I did have a skill set that led me to do what I am now doing. And it was just, I needed to take the time to like listen to that and to lean into it and to, move forward in a way that was like, okay, I'm going to position myself to do this work in this way.
Yeah, I love it. So let's speak a little bit about your work and perspective, because I feel like we're already talking about it, right? It's how we're in this season where people are being laid off, people are in transition. Sometimes it's something you choose. You choose to leave job and rebrand yourself and reposition yourself doing the things you love. People are changing careers, right? So maybe I want to ask a little bit of question um, that about some of the things that I've seen with. So I work with a lot of immigrant professionals. I work with a lot of ERG leaders, and so part of it is the cultural challenge around personal branding and bragging. And so my first question will be around your topic and your niche and your focus. You've lived it, but then you've also interviewed people and you also work with clients. How can someone build credibility without feeling like they're bragging?
Yeah. I think that's one of the biggest challenges with building your personal brand is it can feel like you're showing up and just bragging or talking about yourself all the time, right? But the reality is sharing those things, sharing those milestones, those awards, those just things about us, those, maybe personal stories even, are really what help people connect with us, and they want to cheer us on, right? So whenever I go speak, for example, I have a speaking event, I'm going to post about that event ahead of time. I'm going to share a picture of me on the stage. I'm going to, I'm going to share moments of that event because for one, it helps position me, right? People then see me as, oh, she's the one going out and speaking. She's the one who helps people get on stages, right? And so there's a little bit of a humble brag in that, but also it's people are excited about that, right? I run into people and they're like, you're like a professional conference attendee because you go to all these conferences, right? So they see these, which is not true at all. I might go to like one every couple months or something, but people see it and that's what they start associating with me. And so that's what you really want, is that recognition of it doesn't have to be every single day I'm posting a video of myself or a photo of my face or whatever. But when you are showing up and you're showing your face and you're showing things that you're doing, those types of content, those content pieces are really engaging, and people really they really we see this with our clients because we do the content for our clients, and people engage with those posts more than anything else. So it's hard for us sometimes to put those types of content pieces out there because we feel like, oh, like it feels cringy maybe. But the reality is, on the other side, other people aren't seeing you every day. They're not seeing what you're doing every day. They're not hearing from you every day. So all of a sudden you come up in their feed and they go, oh, that's great. She's attending that conference. She got that award. She's doing that thing. Right. And so it's really sharing those snippets of your life with people in a way that helps them remember that you're there. And like you said, the credibility piece, it's building the credibility around what you're doing and how you help people.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still living that right now too. Still struggling with, you post content around your work and it's cricket, and then you post some snippet about your child that did something,
Yeah.
or myself that went to speak, and everybody is like, "Who?" And I feel so. Sometimes it's like, why do people really yeah, I don't know, it still feels uncomfortable, but you're right, because one of the things as an entrepreneur over the last years, I mean, and I guess this will be different for different people, is that I am my brand,
You are.
because
Yeah.
people don't know the name of my company, but they know my name.
Yeah.
Right. So they want that to be real. They want to feel like, I know this person. And it doesn't matter what your role is, what your day job and title is. If people are going to connect with you, they want to connect with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the more technology spaced world we live in, the more people recognize, tailored content, and they want the ones that has humanity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
something a little more real.
Yeah. When you mentioned, the like people engage more with the post when you're talking about something with your kids or something, the reality is people want to work with people that they like and that they feel like they know, right? And so when you're sharing something that's very deeply personal, it doesn't have to be like too personal, but like something like that. Like,
Right.
maybe you work from home and you're just sharing a moment of like your kid in your office and like, this is part of my day. I get to cuddle with my babies while I'm working, whatever. People love that. And then it helps them, know you, get to know you better, right? They
Mhm.
like you. Maybe they go, oh, oh yeah, like she's got kids. It helps them like trust you, right? So it feels personal, and it feels weird because it's like, well, this is like, it's non-professional thing that I'm putting out there. But you never know, it might lead to people going like, oh, I might connect her with so and so who might be able to work with her. I get those kind of referral connections all the time, and those come from people who know you and like you and trust you enough to send people your way.
Yeah, I love it. So I think what you just described is going to lean into the three pillars you talk about. So if you want to
Yeah.
share a little bit more about visibility, credibility, consistency, how do those things connect, and how can people begin to leverage that as they think about who they are and the persona that they want people to walk away with about themselves?
Yeah, yeah. So when it comes to building your personal brand or developing a thought leadership platform, there's three pillars, as you mentioned, that everyone should be thinking about, right? So it's visibility, credibility, and consistency. Visibility is, you got to get visible in front of your target audience, right? Like, obviously people need to know who you are, or they're not going to sign up to work with you. So whether that be maybe speaking at an event where your audience will be, or showing up on LinkedIn or whatever social media platform your audience is likely to be using. Podcasting is a great example, right? So here you and I are having this conversation. What are the podcasts that your audience is listening to that they might discover you from a conversation you're having? Um, and I'll come back to podcasts because it's not just about me trying to get in front of your audience necessarily, right? It's also about the credibility piece. So when I come on here and I'm talking with you, I now have clips from this interview that I can take and I can turn into content pieces that I can share on my social media. So those little clips are helping people see me as credible on the topic that I talk about, right? So pillar number 2 being credibility. There's ways that you can establish your credibility, like I said, through podcasting, through having a book. So I recently published my book, The Unlocking Your Authority X Factor. When I go out and speak now, I have a book that I can share with the audience. People, that type of that's a marketing tool that people will now see me as credible. So it's not just about getting in front of them, but it's also helping them understand why you're the best person to work with them. Other types of content around credibility that help build your credibility might be case studies. So if you have specifically worked with certain clients and help them in a way where you have some numbers around that you can share, that helps build up your credibility. And then the third pillar is consistency. It's not about just like showing up one time, or, you go out and speak at an event, great. Or I do a podcast interview, great. But like, it's doing it on a regular basis. So getting out there and if speaking makes sense for you, getting out there and speaking regularly, getting on podcasts. I usually tell people, shoot for like 1 or 2 a month, just so that you're continually showing up and have that type of content to share. LinkedIn content, I recommend posting 2 to 3 times a week. If you're B2B, if your audience is likely to be on LinkedIn. It helps people remember that you exist. So when, I might put out a post today talking about personal branding, and someone may not be in a place where they're thinking about that, right? But 6 months from now, they may be in a place where now maybe they've been laid off now, or maybe, they've been working in their job, but they're like kind of maybe ready to take the next step, and maybe they're thinking about going out on their own. Well, now they might be thinking about personal branding a little more seriously. They're not going to remember something I posted 6 months ago, but if I'm continually showing up in their feed, they're going to remember me when the time is right. So all of those things together are going to help you build a personal brand over time.
Yeah, and not just a personal brand, one that is actually genuinely you.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I think that's the difference these days is, yeah, there's so many people that are sharing stuff and everybody sounds amazing online, but sometimes you go deep and some of it is not true, or it's not
Right.
the right representation. So I think the differentiator in these days of AI, one of the things I personally started doing more of this year, or thinking about, because I feel like I've been doing it because I have a podcast, of course, but I haven't been thinking of video content. I've been thinking more of written content because I like writing.
Yeah.
That's my sweet spot. Like I have ideas for stuff like when I'm driving or I'm at home and by my bedside I have a notepad. I'll have ideas for something and I'll jot down. So I have drafts. I have tons of drafts all over my writing spaces. So that's my comfortable space. I've grown there over the years and I love writing. But then I realized we're in the world where everybody writes perfect stuff, but I want to see the person behind the writing. And so I started being more intentional. I started growing a presence on TikTok, which is no more feeling weird, but it still feels weird. It's like I want people to put a face to my name in the
Yeah.
spaces where I show up. And so I think that's the differentiator that you are bringing into these. Again, there's so many marketing people that use the term I'm in marketing now these days that I love people that have their own story of why they're doing and how they're bringing your your voice and your thoughts to what you do. So when I guess maybe one of the questions I would have would be why do you think so many people feel uncomfortable stepping into this space, leadership, publicity, branding?
Yeah. Well, I think it's easier to have your head down and to just be, in your work and not putting yourself out there, right? I think we also tend to think that somebody else has all the answers. Somebody else is the visionary or the person who's meant to be in the spotlight, right? For me, it was the eye-opening moment was I went to a conference in Seattle. Gosh, I don't know, it's maybe been 4 or 5 years ago now. And I sat through session after session after session going, I could have taught that. Like I could have taught that session, right? And I realized I had hit a point in my career where it's like I know a lot. Like I've done this for 20 years, right? Like I have stuff within me, experience that I can teach people how to do things that I've done.
Mhm.
And so it was at that conference that I said, you know what, I need to start doing this. I need to start getting myself out there. And I never thought about that before. I never thought like I'm horrified of public speaking. So like getting on a stage was like it was like no way, right? There's no way I could do that. Um, but I got myself signed up for a speaking event and it was, it was horrifying. But I did it and I didn't die. And I started doing more. You mentioned TikTok. Like I started forcing myself to do video content where I was just talking, right? Getting on podcasts, practicing my message. And over time, it was like I got better and better at it. Again, all of that again led me to once I started my business, all of a sudden I had this experience and I had been doing these things that I didn't know I was doing for a purpose, other than just I was trying to push myself. But I think that we get comfortable. I don't know if it's always comfortable, but like we just kind of get stuck in like, oh, this is my role. This is what I do, right? And somebody else is that face. Um, but we have so much more to give, and if we give ourselves a little bit more credit and push ourselves to do things that maybe feel uncomfortable, I think we're capable of so much more as well.
I love it. Yes, thank you. I feel like I'm getting coached, and hopefully, my guests, my audience are also listening because I was like, this whole topic of personal branding, it's been a struggle, it's been a challenge, and a lot of people see my stuff out there, and people see me out there. I mean, I still remember somebody telling me, "Oh, yeah, you do a good job of really promoting yourself out there," and I felt like, is that a compliment or is that a critique? And the only way to get better at this is to just start doing it. And I think having conversations like these, for those listening, is also giving ourselves permission
Yeah.
just lean into who you are and lean into there's
Yeah.
multiple platforms now, right? Maybe I went for a walk with a friend by the beach. One of self-care practices was she was very intentional about put a time on our calendar. It's break time for me. We'll go for a walk. We'll have a distance that we'll walk and we'll come back. And she has a marker. She has her thing, right? Like because the beach was like next to a house, and so she had her process, and we'll get to, this is where I get to, I pick rocks as I'm going, and we take a picture. And I was going to post about it because it was an experience for me, just how intentional it was and how refreshing. And she's like, oh no, don't put that on LinkedIn. That's not my persona on LinkedIn. And that sat with me because I was like, I guess that might have been me too at some point. Um
Well, because we're afraid. We're afraid of like I've been there, like where you're afraid of anyone thinking of like I was doing something other than working during the day, or if they don't see that as yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
'Cause I thought about it. I was like, it has taken me a while to get to where I post pictures from my workout with my sweaty self, because maybe there was something that came up for me, or there was a reason why I was working out, right? Like I post workout pictures, I post pictures with my kids. Like I don't have to have perfect makeup on. But that's my persona, and that's how I've grown to get there over time. But I know sometimes for people, it's like, no, not this platform. I'm not the real me.
yeah,
Instagram is where I show up as this.
yeah,
LinkedIn is where I show up as this. And
yep,
I guess I'm just trying to, there's no right or wrong answer. There's just, we need to figure out a way to bring our full selves in the
yes,
way that we want people to know us.
yeah. I think so. I think there's always going to be that, like different platforms are different,
Mm.
different things. But I do think that people should feel a little more comfortable showing up as themselves on LinkedIn than they currently like. Now, if you work for some corporation where like,
Right.
like, yes, I
And this was the
understand.
scenario in this
Yeah.
case, somebody
Yeah.
part of like a
Yeah.
huge organization.
Yeah. I worked in corporate previously, but I work remotely, and I'm a calendar blocker. So I have everything blocked to my calendar. Well, I would block my workouts in the morning, and I would work out from 7 to 8, sometimes 8:30, like I'd go for a run or whatever. And I would have that blocked on my calendar. Well, and I had somebody come to me and say, basically like, people have a problem with you working out during the workday. And I'm like, it's before the workday, like 8:30 in the morning. But they were in central time. So it was 9:30 their
Oh,
time, and so there was people had a problem with it. And it was like, what? So yes, so there are reasons why we get, overly cautious at times. And I'm not telling anyone, who is working in corporate to do anything that, that would compromise their job or anything like that. It's more so just being able to show a side of your personality, because the thing is, as AI is becoming more and more popular and being used more and more, people are showing up with AI generated content all the time,
right.
right? But AI can't replace you as a person, and you showing, here I am working out, here I am walking on the beach. After I ran a marathon, I shared the picture of me crossing the finish line, right? Like, so those types of things humanize us and make us stand out in a world where so much is just being automatically generated. Some roles you might have to be more careful than others.
Yeah. Well, if people would like to work with you or to follow up with you, how can they best reach out to you?
Yeah. Well, if personal branding is something that you are wanting to or thinking about, maybe wanting to explore, I do have a quiz on my website. So if you go to kellyschuknecht.com, which I imagine you'll have the link in the show notes, because
Absolutely.
it's a difficult name to spell, but right at the top of the website, there's a personal brand scorecard, and you can take that, and it will walk you through a series of questions that are thought provoking as you're taking it, but then it also gives you a score in the end and tells you what you can work on to get to kind of like the next level with your personal brand. So that's a great place for anyone who's, kind of thinking about this to start. And then of course, connect with me on LinkedIn. Again, you can probably put the link in the show notes, but it's my name, Kelly Schuknecht at LinkedIn.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. This was really great. I love how we ended up. Again, I have questions that I come up with, but I felt like it was all, I didn't look at my notes at all. Just like asking you questions based on what we wanted to know. I wanted also actually have something that people can walk away with. So I'm looking forward to also taking that assessment myself
Great.
and see
Yeah,
how it shapes out. So any final thoughts, insights for somebody maybe that relates with you and As you look back at your own personal journey and where you are now and what you do, I want to bring it back to intersectionality to wrap us up. How do you think your own intersections, how do you think your background, how do you think your experiences is shaping how you lead and the business you're building today?
Yeah. So I think, I was always, I mentioned like always kind of exploring something outside of work and always kind of listening to like what was calling to me, right? So it was like, I need to be getting on stages. I need to be pushing myself to do things that make me uncomfortable. And for me, that really led me down a career path I wasn't even expecting, starting this business. As a leader within my business, I want my people to be very much themselves, to show up as themselves in meetings, to share who they are online. I want them to feel comfortable with that. And so I think that I'm a big proponent of the intersectionality and knowing that like it's okay for people to be real and to be their whole selves. You have to show up to a client meeting being professional, but you can also have conversations with your clients about like, hey, how did it go this weekend? What did you do this weekend? How are the kids? Like, right? We can be real people. And I think that makes us show up for our clients in a way that we are genuine and we care about them, and we want them to care about us too and what we have going on in our lives, because we're all people, right? So I think that kind of shapes how I lead my team as well.
Yeah, thank you. So my final question is about food. I love to close with this signature question. So if you were to share a meal, a dish, a snack with your coworkers, your team, what would you pick and why?
Well, the reality is I would probably choose some sort of crackers and cheese because that is like the thing I could live on.
Okay, this is a first for
Really,
me.
not even really a meal, but whenever my husband is away, I will make myself like a giant charcuterie board, and that's what I will eat for like, any nights when he's away, because I'm just like I could eat, like
So
the
easy.
crackers, the cheese, a little bit of grapes, like whatever. I'm a grazer. So if I could have a meal with you, that's what I would do. Let's go get some charcuterie.
I love that. I love that though, because I love charcuterie boards and I think it's just a mixed variety and no long term prep needed. Everybody can eat, can kind of pick the ones they're drawn to. So that also kind of speaks nicely to some of the things you've shared. I think it resonates with the topics that you've shared about the kind of person you are and just your diverse interests. So I love linking the responses back to what you talked about, and I think that worked nicely. Well, it was nice meeting you, Kelly. Thank you so much for chatting with me. Thank you for the work you do. And looking forward to having follow up conversations.
Well, thank you for having me on.
For anyone listening, don't forget to rate, review this episode wherever you get your podcast. We also have a new fan button on each episode. So you get to provide actual feedback on each episode. So if there's anything that resonated with you in this conversation with Kelly, of course, follow both of us, but you can provide feedback about this episode itself. So looking forward to hearing your thoughts, everyone. Thanks for joining.